Hi, I'm Ann Weiser Cornell, and welcome to this week's edition of Support for Stressful Times. I am so grateful that we're doing this. We've been doing it since mid-March, and it's mid-August now. That's 5 months. And I so look forward to being with you and sharing some of the tips I know, which as I share them, I will also be doing myself. So this is really good for me too. And as we like to say, the very first tip of all is pausing. And we're all kind of pausing right now. The intention to be on this webinar together is a kind of pause already. But what's supposed to happen when we pause is that we begin to become more aware of our body. So I'm becoming aware of my body right now. So pause and sense. Like those two things can really go together. Pause and sense. And sometimes I get so nervous, anxious, worried that it's actually hard for me to pause and sense. I feel like I can't. At the moment I'm okay. There's things going on in my world that make it a little scary. We've got the worst air quality right now where I live in California. We're not supposed to go outside today for that reason, not even a walk in the neighborhood. And the newspapers and news are full of pictures of fire, people being forced to leave their homes. Okay, I'm just letting you know the external events that are going on right now for me, and I'm sure for you, there are external events that are going now on for you. As Ann said, back at work, student health clinic. Yes. So this is actually something we can do that helps. I think you'll find it helps. It helps me. And that is, no matter what's going on, let's pause and sense. What I usually sense first is my body in contact with what I'm sitting on. And this works just as well if you're standing or lying down. I can feel my back, I can feel my arms in contact with the chair arms, my elbows, feel my seat, feel my feet. And then often because I'm doing that, I take a deeper breath. And then I start to be curious about how I feel in the inner area of my body, like throat, chest, stomach. And I'm finding a kind of tense, almost nauseous feeling in my stomach. And then I take those words, my words were tense, almost nauseous, and I check. Does that describe it well? Do you want to do that too? Sensing how you're feeling in your body. And if you don't have to describe it, but if a description comes, then you check the description. Is that it? Is that what it feels like? Maybe another description comes. Descriptions can be images. Descriptions can be gestures, like it might feel like this, a clenched fist. And why do we do that? I mean, why, I grew up in a world where the best thing to do with challenging feelings was to ignore them. Pretend they're not there. Talk about something more cheerful. Think about happy times. That was my mother's method. And I notice that even now, and this is a long time after my childhood, even now, there's that first tendency, can I get away from this somehow? And I notice that. I notice can I get away from this somehow? That's just another thing I say hello to. I don't make that wrong. I don't make that bad. I don't shame myself for, feeling like I got to get away from this feeling. I just notice it. That makes me happy. Like I'm getting bigger. I've got the tense feeling and I've got something that wants to get away from it. And I'm with all of that. And what I've discovered is that when I don't follow the impulse to get away from it, when I say hello to the impulse to get away from it, but I don't, get away from it, then I become more present, more grounded, and the feeling itself has some kind of positive thing happen, like maybe it gets a bit calmer. See what happens for you. You may want to say hello to a stressful feeling that you're finding in your body. Like this. I'm sensing something in me, feeling, fill in the word, mine is tense and nauseous. I'm sensing something in me, something in my stomach, feeling tense and nauseous. And I'm saying hello to that. And then you're pausing to notice how that lands. What happens then? I feel a slight settling. Oh, actually, it feels somewhat better there. Well, you're all such good listeners. It's a pleasure to tell you how I feel and have the feeling of being heard. But let me take a peek at the chat and see if you're telling me how you feel. Christina writes, there's a lot of tightness and exhaustion that I hadn't been paying attention to. We're pausing to pay attention to what's here. And Marianne writes, oh, there's an external stressor of a hurricane possibly aiming for Florida. Oh my gosh. And tightness in the upper chest. Our feelings have the job of alerting us to what we need and want and what we may need to do. So by turning attention to how we feel, we're not trying to make our feelings go away. We may need them. There may be something they're telling us. We are creating a relationship that's more friendly and that can feel more empowering and help us feel more resilient, really, right? And that has to do with whether you get identified with your feelings or whether you know yourself to be bigger than your feelings. And this is very interesting because before I learned the focusing process from Eugene Gendlin, I didn't understand that you could have your feelings, but not get lost in them, not get taken over by them. In my upbringing, I only learned you could have your feelings. I am angry, I am scared, or you could just completely try to get rid of them, suppress them, repress them. Those were the only two ways. The third way, which is I am here with that. I am here sensing that, is, I think it's revolutionary. It means that all the wisdom and information that's in my feelings, all the ways that my feelings help me be human, they help me connect with others empathically. They help me live in a world where I'm interconnected. I get to have all the benefits of my feelings and more. I get to have the rest of me. I get to have more than one feeling at the same time. I get to be both scared and feel pretty lucky at the same time, grateful, lucky. So this feeling that I can be bigger than my feelings, I can have them, and I can say to my feelings, you can be the way you are. I don't become somebody who's trying to fix or change my feelings. They will change. They're going to change. My job is to sense, acknowledge, and be here. What else are people writing in the chat? Yes, Haja wrote, was a rush to get here, and my shoulders and chest feel as if they're carrying a yoke. Oh, that's a nice vivid image. And Sid writes, this feels like Vipassana meditation. Yes, I've heard that Vipassana meditation is quite similar to focusing. Not all types or branches of Vipassana are close, but somebody told me once that there was a type that's just like this. So that's so great. Daniela, I'm sensing something feeling shaky in my throat. And as I said hello to it, it started to feel safe with me, protected and taken care of. Oh, isn't that nice? So what you see, what we are talking about is an inner relationship. And when we say hello to our feelings, there starts to be a quality of relationship that has the caring, taking care of, safety qualities. Like I can be with how I feel with kindness, compassion, warmth. And that's a very resilient healing attitude, very resilient healing process. Yay. Yay. Martha writes, I'm sensing something in me tight in my chest with tears behind my eyes. Yes. And Martha's in a place where there's fires too, I think. Kathleen writes, my eyes feel like crying. Yes. Catherine writes, I'm feeling excited about a new project and wanting to do my work in a new way with gentle self-respect. Lovely. I'm so glad to hear that. Great. Great, great, great. Somebody wrote, this morning it all seemed too much. Have others felt that way too? I know there have been times this week when things felt all too much for me too. It's such a important thing to pause and acknowledge. I'm acknowledging that it just really feels all too much right now. You know, I teach some very precise language. You've heard, if you've been here before, you've heard it from me before. I am sensing something in me feels. That language can be very helpful, but there are also times when you forget the language and it all seems too much. Even remembering the language can seem all too much. And even then, it's just helpful to notice. I'm noticing it's all too much. It's just all too much right now. Even that is a step toward presence with yourself, toward inner relationship, toward being bigger than your feelings. Even that is a step. I love that because it means we're only that far away from feeling, I don't necessarily want to say better, but more present, stronger, more able to deal with what we're dealing with in stressful times. Yes, yes. Connie writes, I don't know how to keep quiet and stay with myself. Oh, what a good thing to realize. Yeah. Well, let's see if I can give you some tips for that. The first tip I would give is that even if you can do it for only a moment, like a tenth of a second, that's better than nothing. So you could start doing it in very small increments and let that much land, and then notice that there's an urge to get away and get moving. So let's take a moment right now, Connie. Maybe put a hand on your body, your chest or your stomach, and say, I'm here. Do that much. And then maybe it goes away, it stops, you can't keep doing it. Okay, but you did that much. Very good. Roland writes, someplace in my chest I'm feeling rushed. There's something that feels like I wanted to get so much done this morning. Ah, yes, getting things done. So how wonderful to acknowledge that. Something in me wanted to get so much done this morning. Sounds like that didn't happen, Roland. And you're acknowledging it. You know, another thing that's important when we do this is being kind and generous to ourselves. And that's not always easy, right? Think about Roland's share about not getting as much done as he would have liked this morning. Maybe there's an inner critical voice saying, what's wrong with you? You should have. Maybe Eve is here today. Eve was talking about this with us last week. An inner critical voice that tells you you're inadequate, you're not good enough. I wanted to come back to that today because one of the important things we can do for ourselves during stressful times is be kind to ourselves. Have you been kind to yourself today? And when you put a hand on your body and you say, I'm here now, you're talking to your own feelings. I'm here now. I'm here with you. Doing that with a tone of kindness, with gentleness. And slowly, over time, increasing the number of times a day that you treat yourself with kindness. Did you ever, I'm sort of clumsy, and so I bump into things and hit my toe on things a few times a week. And formerly, before I started practicing kindness to myself, when that happened, I would call myself an idiot or stupid or clumsy. And then I consciously noticed I was doing that, and I said, well, let me switch to saying something kind to myself. And now I say, oh, sweetie. Bang. Oh, sweetie. Like I would to a little kid who had hit their head in my presence. Oh, sweetie. Oh, sweetie. So kindness, what can we do when we make a mistake? Or when we disappoint ourselves by not getting everything done that we were hoping? What can we do then? Be gentle. Be kind. Say, I hear you. Now, the inner critical voice has a special quality. And I'm talking about parts of us that talk to us about some failing of ourselves. Do people have something like that? Why aren't this inner voice or feeling that is saying to you, why aren't you doing better? Why aren't you a better person? You should. This is the should voice. Now, there are many methods that believe in dismissing a voice like that. Like telling it that it's wrong, bad, like in turn criticizing the inner critic. Many methods do that. And if they help you, I'm glad. But they don't help me. And I'm not really very fond of any kind of negative relationship in the inner world. You can do negatives as much as you want with those people who are hurting the outer world, but in the inner world, let's have kindness. Because inside you, every part of you is trying to help you. Now, that's a radical statement, especially when we have inner critics, parts of us that are saying negative things to us. But they do that because they're so anxious. In other words, if you get extremely worried about another person, it is the easiest thing in the world to get angry at them. If a little kid runs into the traffic and you're the parent and you are terrified and then you manage to get a hold of that kid before they get hurt, very likely the next response is anger. Anger, critical anger. What's wrong with you? I told you to never do that. Critical anger is very related to terror, terrified anxiety. So what if, when we have an inner critic telling us that there's something wrong with us, we make a guess that that's a part of us that's worried about us? It's saying those things because it's worried. Do you have a part that says you should exercise more? Maybe it's saying that because it's worried. So that's one of the tips I have for these voices that aren't so kind inside of us. Maybe it's worried about something. And what happened when my colleague Barbara McGavin and I started to develop this method in ourselves and teaching other people to turn toward inner critics and make a guess that they might be worried about something, amazing things happen. And 100% of the time, it always turned out to be true. That it turned out to be a very hardworking, exhausted part. It felt like it all alone was trying to save your life by saying these very critical and harsh things. So there's a revelation, really. I'm so glad to be able to share it with you. Catherine writes, I've had a pattern of looking to others for validation and support through focusing on learning to be kind to myself. Catherine, I hope you get validation and support from other people too. But it is true that the first source of kindness needs to be ourselves. We're the only ones who's with us all the time. Oh, Jareena's got a tip for the clumsy critic, for the critic of the clumsiness. Oh, that's not what I intended to do. That's lovely. That's really nice. That's very nice. Yeah. Yeah. Haja says, I've been beating myself up about not starting to sort things. Yeah. Okay, here we are. I hope you're living in a place where you can start getting out and going back to work. But here, where I live, we're mostly still at home. And sorting things has been a big leisure time activity. My room where I'm sitting right now is much more organized than it was 5 months ago. So we have a wanting, and then we have what happens. And what I love about wanting is that wanting is good. Like, I would love to have a more organized room, or I would love to play my guitar more often so that I actually start feeling good at it. Or, right? Do you have some wanting that is unfulfilled? And does the unfulfilled wanting become another inner critic? You should have, what's wrong with you? But what if we let ourselves have wanting, whether or not it happens? That would be a lovely exercise to have. Wanting has life energy in it. Can you sense what you're wanting right now? What you're wanting these days, even though it's impossible right now? Or even though it might be really hard? You know what's funny? I don't have any wanting at all to get back on an airplane. But I do have a big wanting to give a hug to my granddaughter. So don't worry about how. Just let yourself have wanting. And notice how we can invite wanting, the energy, the feel of wanting, or we can feel bad about it. We have a choice right there. Yes. So I love it that people were writing in the chat about. Christina writes, my biggest inner wanting is for internal peace. Internal peace is not that hard to get. Just keep saying hello to anything that isn't. Then you become the one who's peaceful. I say that with a smile because I know it can be hard. I wouldn't mean to say that if it's hard for you that you're doing anything wrong. I just mean we're on a journey here together. And It makes so much sense to want inner peace. Notice what isn't. Notice what isn't. Yeah. So Martha points out my negative inner voice says I'm not doing enough to help the world. And there's the wanting inside the negative, right? I'm wanting to help the world. I'm wanting to do as much as I can to help the world. I'm wanting to do what's possible. I'm wanting to do what's possible for me. And there's another wanting, which is I'm wanting the world to be helped. I'm wanting a world that's what? You can say, Martha, for yourself. More peaceful, more just. Kathleen writes, my longing is inner peace and laughter. Great, great. So I just want to say that I think wanting has life energy in it. That when you recognize desire within yourself, you recognize a kind of life energy. And that some people, maybe even some of you, don't know what they want or feel like they don't have any desires. And I give you the invitation this week to look for some. What are some wantings and desires that you do have? Christiana writes, be more courageous in my decisions is a great wanting. And thanks for the reminder of getting in touch with the wanting. Yes, yes, yes. Okay, so we're almost at our ending time. So let's do a quick recap of what we said today. Pausing and sensing how you are right now, including pausing and sensing that one in you that wants to get away from it, not feel it. That's included. We include everything instead of identifying with anything. And if there's an inner critic, we say hello because we know it's only critical because it's terrified. So we say, hello, you might be worried. And we see if we can be kind to ourselves and say, oh, I know you did your best and we're going to have a great day together. And then that we can allow ourselves to have wanting. That whether or not it's possible or whether or not we know how to get there, wanting itself can have life energy in it. All presence, all awareness helps. I am aware, I am noticing. All right, we've come to the end of our time. So lovely to be with you. I'll be back next week and back at the same time in 2 weeks. I look forward to it already. Here's to you having a more peaceful life. Bye. Take care. Bye. Yay.